All right, guys. Hi, welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call. Today is Tuesday, July 2nd. I'm here with Laura Biewer from CoachMeLaura.com and Carol Ray from Notary to Pro. My name is Bill Soroka, the founder of NotaryCoach.com. We're excited to be here with you. We've got some great questions that have been submitted via email, and I know there's quite a few on the call today that have some questions, challenges, or maybe even some big wins they want to share with the group so we can gain some perspective. But before we actually get started, I just wanted to say, Carol, I was trying to go back in time to when we first connected and first started doing this. And we recorded our first video together where we talked about our collaboration together. That was April 15th. So we have been over a year now.
I was going to say it was not this April.
No, I have no sense of time, but I knew it was longer than that. But we've been working together now for over a year. And I was just feeling so grateful for the connections that we have and then being able to do what we do. I love that we share so many similarities and we're different in so many ways and we can share our perspectives with so many people. So thank you, Carol, for being a part of it. Thank you for introducing me to Laura. Laura, the connection with you has just been amazing. So this is incredible, and I really appreciate the opportunity that we get every week.
I was just telling my husband this morning, because I've talked to you and I've also talked to Laura about a couple of other connections, and which is not something we'll go in this morning, but all of the people that I have worked with, talked to, and especially the three of you, we have always had one basic goal: to do what we do as a profession, to raise the bar and have people respect notaries and notary signing agents as professional people that are doing a good job. They're being of service to other people. There's so many people in this business that are in it for the wrong reason. And I know for sure the three of us and a couple of other people that I've worked with, we all have that goal and that drive, that belief in what we do. And it's amazing, and I love it, and I love the two of you. I really do.
Awesome. Well, right back at you. And I love that the audience that we've really attracted. We don't pay for advertising here. So the people who are drawn to watch this and participate with us, we're all of like mind. And I think that's really powerful. This is really one of the most loving and supportive communities I've ever experienced. So I'm grateful every day for it, guys. So thank you. If you're watching us, I really appreciate it. Laura, again, thank you for being a part of this as well. This is pretty amazing. Even when you're down, you've got a broken rib, you're feeling a little better, I hope, with your pain medication, but you're still here committed to helping so many people. So it's appreciated.
Oh, you got your pain medication?
Yes. Once I got the x-ray and they confirmed the break, I'm on meds, and they do help. They don't take away all the pain, but it cuts it quite a bit.
Good.
Yeah, and like George is thanking you, Laura, for the presentation that you did on Living Trust on Sunday. And guys, I just want to let you know, we didn't talk about it that day, but Laura had just experienced some major pain the day before. So she was really struggling and really pulled through. So I thought that was awesome that she stayed committed. All right, guys, let's get into it in a second, since we did that. And thank you for your time there. But second, Carol, can you tell me something you're excited about this week?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm not specifically. I've just got to say I've got some projects going that I'm very excited about. And when I get into new things and add things to my business and to my life, it's very exciting for me, but it's nothing I could really talk about details.
I'm sure that's coming. I can't wait to hear about it. Love new ideas. Laura, how about you? What are you excited about? Besides Vicodin.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Let's see. I'm excited that I did make it through and take care of that presentation on Sunday after I took that fall. There were a lot of people who had great questions, who were very excited. And what I really love about this particular one is that we take a look actually at what our own life situations are, and how many of us don't have a will, don't have a trust, and don't protect, our family and our assets. And so it's just a good idea, even if you don't want to do the trust work for other people, to consider what your own situation is, and make sure you protect yourself. So I'm excited to hear responses that say, hey, I took a look at my own situation and see that maybe I need to do something there. So fabulous. And coming up, I don't really have anything too exciting in the month of July other than I'm going to be another year older next Thursday. Yeah, and you know what? I'm feeling it today. That's about it. Everything else is going pretty good.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that, and happy birthday. There's a good chance I might forget on the exact day, but I'll remember the day after or the day before. I'm usually really good at that. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
For me, I am really excited about the response to the Notary Assist Blitz training that we're doing. The owner of Notary Assist agreed. Sue Hope is her name, and she's awesome. Really great energy and passionate about what she does. She was a mobile notary and loan signing agent whose husband helped her develop software, accounting software, to help keep notaries efficient and organized. And she was coming on Monday through Friday this week, delivering free training about how to optimize your use of that software. It's happening every day at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time this week. And they're all going to be recorded. They're all going to be posted to the Notary Coach YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime you want. But we had 83 people show up for that yesterday to learn about accounting software. I just love that this group loves to geek out on notary stuff. So I'm real excited about that.
Best program ever. Laura and I both know for sure.
Yeah, everybody speaks so highly of it. I love that there's so much enthusiasm behind something like that. That's so cool. And Sue's been great.
We were one of the first customers of theirs.
That's what she said. Yeah. And always a big supporter throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and jump in. I see we already have some conversation and some questions going in the chat window. And I'm going to go to Jerry's question. Laura, if you want to address this one first. He says, wills in California are witnessed, not notarized. Are there any exceptions to this rule?
So there are some states that handle wills differently. Some do require notarization. And typically the way they make that happen is that they add an attestation clause or a self-proving affidavit, and that is the piece that is notarized, and you're notarizing all three signatures in that case, the will maker signature and the two witnesses, that they were all together in the same place and all seeing each other sign, and that the person signing it, the will maker, was of sound mind. So California doesn't have that requirement of a self-proving affidavit, but some states do.
Perfect. Beautiful. Oh, and then I see you already kind of addressed that as well. All right, let's jump in. Is there anybody who's live on the call right now that would like to unmute and ask a question before we jump into the presentation? Any challenges that you ran into? Any major wins that you'd like to share with the group that might help other people?
Good morning, Bill. This is Anna.
Hey, Anna, how are you?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Laura and Carol. The question that I have, and maybe it's not something we can go into today, but when I make an error on a notary certificate, what is the best practice for correcting that? Now, what I like to do is if I make an error, I'll take the copy from the borrower's set or the signer's set and make it a clean copy. However, when I make two errors, or if I make an error and they make an error, what's the best practice on getting that corrected?
Carol, you want to kick that one off?
Depending on the error, if you're talking about like a wrong date, are you talking about that, or the stamp didn't come out right?
It could be all of the above. So
Everything.
how would you handle any error?
Well, if it's more than one error, you need to, I think you need to find a way to create a new certificate if you can, because it looks really sloppy. But generally, if you make a small error, I put a line, just put a line through it and correct it. I've done that a lot with sitting at uneven tables and you try to put your stamp on it and they don't come out right. I've done them upside down. I've done all kinds of things. And I found that just putting a line through it, very nice and clean, not messy, really takes care of it. If you've made a lot of errors on it, you need to make sure you always carry extra certificates so that you can complete them. Even though it might be a problem with a recorded document because they charge if it's an additional page. But that's how I've always handled it. How about you, Laura?
No, same way. Strike. I do put my initials. They're very tiny, so that somebody knows the notary's the one that made that correction. And if it is if it's the stamp and there's no room to re-stamp, then I attach another certificate form and do it again.
So I actually had a signing yesterday where the stamp was not, it was uneven, and so it did not print stamp clearly. So what I did is I attached a whole new acknowledgement. So what I'm understanding you to say is I could actually line out the stamp that is in error and then re-stamp and initial, line out and stamp, initial, and then re-stamp, and that is an acceptable document?
Sure.
I've never had a problem with it.
Yep.
Never had a student that had a problem.
Okay. Yep. All right. This is very good to know. I haven't had multiple errors on one certificate. I've had one error, and so usually the signings are at night after the hotline is closed. So lining out, initialing, and restamping, or lining out, initialing, and correcting the error, that's acceptable.
Absolutely acceptable. It happens all the time, guys. You might stamp upside down. You can just strike through that, re-stamp the right side up. There's all kinds of, this is the standard correction policy. Now, there's an exception to this too, is on the note. The note is usually the one document that a lender does not want to see any corrections on. So if the signer signs it and dates it wrong or dates it when they shouldn't date it, instead of striking that out, that's the one document you might want to consider replacing completely.
Okay. My first reaction is to use a clean copy. And that's what I always do. So there's only like a small portion where the second copy gets messed up. So, right. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great question. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good morning. This is Lori. I ran into a situation. Good morning. I ran into a situation last week. I was on the road heading to my signing, and the escrow company called and said that the documents are not correct and I needed to print a new set. That happened 3 times. What do you guys do in this situation? Because I actually had to go home twice to reprint those documents. But if you're on the road, I mean, what is something else that I can do so I won't have to make all the travel to go home?
Laura, what do you think?
Well, I think there are 2 things. One is payment for all that extra work, 3 times.
They paid $5 each for print fee, so that was good.
How much?
25.
25. Yeah. Yeah, because that is a lot of coming and going and printing. The other part is, how do you not have to go all the way home to your office? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, like if I'm on the road and that's the only way I can print. I don't have a printer in my car right now other than purchasing a printer. And I thought about purchasing a printer, but then I heard some people on the call say there could be an issue with the heat in the car if you're leaving the printer in the car or something like that. So I didn't want to mess a printer up just by leaving it in the car. And it's 100-degree weather out here now.
Sure. I don't keep a printer in my car.
Okay.
Sometimes I go back to my home office. That's just what I have to do. But I also have some connections, and I have friends in shipping and printing centers, and they're private ones. And they let me get on the computer there, and they let me use their monster machine that just prints it out in 5 minutes, and I'm done. And they do me the favor, and then there's other times when I do them the favor. So that's been another way, is build relationships with people who might have same kinds of clientele, but you're not in direct competition with each other, and you can help each other out. And that's one of my strongest strategies as I've been building my business.
another thing I believe that you can do if you don't have those relationships is go to a FedEx or a Kinko's and use the $25 extra that they pay you and just pay to get it printed. They have their own print. They have computers there, and you can actually download those documents onto your own email. And oftentimes they'll have printers so that you're only paying a small per page fee, or you just give them, whatever you have, and they'll print them up for you and use that $25. And I do want to suggest, I don't know, where do you live? Where do you live? It's hot right now.
In Virginia.
Oh, okay. Because in Arizona, we carried an office with us for a couple of years, and at 118 degrees, you're sitting there in a hot spot in the back seat of the car. I can tell you, not pleasant with a little printer. But what you can do if you do want to carry one is take your cartridges out. When it's not in use, you take the cartridges out of the printer and carry them with you. And that way they're not subject to the heat for more than the time it takes to print.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion because the ink is probably the most vulnerable that's there for sure. And then to kind of tack on to what they're saying, I highly recommend that you have a backup printing plan. And I'm a big fan of UPS stores for a couple of different reasons. First, they're individually owned, so they're franchises. So you can find really great owners that are willing to work with you. You also, there's some bad seeds in there too. People literally told me, "I don't want your business. Please don't come here." So but you can, when you find a gem, you can really have a win-win relationship with them. And they wipe their machines every single night. So as far as information security, they get wiped every single night.
That's a good question. Okay.
Most of the staff are notaries already, so they have a vested and fiduciary responsibility to not do that. So there's a little bit of risk when you go outside and you outsource, but you want to try to mitigate that as much as possible and still be able to service your clients and get the job done. The other cool thing I like about UPS stores, and you'll find this at different print shops too, but they have a prepaid print option. So if you prepay in advance, they'll have, you can get sometimes down to 2 cents a copy. They'll run promotions. So it's usually between 2 and 7 cents per copy. When they have a 2-cent sale, I buy like 1,000 or 2,000 copies in advance, and those are on account at that store. So I can swing by, pick one right off a freeway. So you have some options and backup that way.
On this particular one, they had me reprint the entire package twice. It was 158 pages. So there was no way I could go to UPS or FedEx to pay.
Well, it's only going to cost you like $8. So that's not bad. They're paying you $25, just like Carol said. So you can use that print fee to help cover that. It's sometimes cheaper than gas going back and forth, and the time it's going to take you to go back home twice. Clients just, you got to do what's right for you, but you have tons of options.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Great question. Thank you for that. I think we have another question. Was it Garrett? All right.
This is Garrett in Albuquerque.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hey, I have a question here. I'm looking at, diversifying my business like you all talk about. And I'm sorry, my dog is barking. I'm going to move out of the way here. And one of the things that I've noticed is that some of these other notaries do document preparation. Do any of you do document preparation? And what exactly is document preparation? That would be my first question. And then my second question is, well, I guess you guys answered it in last week's video. I heard you guys talk about apostilles a lot. And I just want to get some more knowledge about apostilles and document preparation. What is required for document preparation? Who do you target? And how do you go about doing that?
Okay, Garrett, great question. I just want to clarify for everybody listening. I think what you're talking about is legal document preparation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So to add that as a service offering, say when the signing business slows down, because it always does when the market goes down and all that. What does that entail, and who do I target? Who uses that type of service?
Excellent. Great question. And I'm gonna get Laura on the wagon on this one too, but legal document preparation rules are vary between the states. In Arizona, you have to have additional training and a license to be a legal document preparer. Laura, what do you find out there in California?
You know what? this is something I have not checked into at all, so I really don't have anything to add other than that's an interesting idea. And I'd start researching, Googling legal document preparation for my state to see if there is any additional requirements, and to see if there's any articles or postings about it. I'd be doing research if that was something I wanted to add.
Beautiful. This is a great example, Garrett, of a business that's very symbiotic with your notary business. It really makes sense. In fact, some of my clients kind of beg me. They're like, will you please become a legal document preparer so you can prepare these deeds? Because title companies, my title escrow direct clients, they will not prepare deeds for people outside. There's too much liability. So they outsource it all the time. So they're always looking for people. So it's a really good service for under the umbrella. Carol, what do you have in this area?
Well, I think that you have to have special education for it, and I think certificate, license, something. Carrie, Carrie, are you here? I know I've seen her pictures.
Yeah, I'm here.
She'd be able to tell us, I think,
what
it involves.
Hold on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
We can. We can see you too.
Hi. I don't. Okay. What was the question again? Because I just went
about being a document preparer.
Oh, I know in Texas you have to be licensed. I didn't know about Arizona. That's good. I think California you have to be. You can become licensed as a legal document preparer, but you have to be licensed. I don't know all the particulars, but it's an option for those people who like myself who are paralegals and you want to do that sort of thing. In Illinois, unfortunately, I'm a glorified legal typist, so I can't really offer my paralegal services to the public, only to attorneys. But for those you guys, if you're interested in preparing those legal documents and you can in your states, man, go get licensed. That's extra money. Go for it. I do it here for attorneys. Unfortunately, I get asked all the time to prepare deeds. And I don't take the risk. I just can't. Even as a glorified legal typist, I just don't do it. I recommend people to, they can do it themselves by, kind of looking at their old deeds if it's just transferring over to a family member or something. But I never actually tell people that. I tell them to go to an attorney. But some people are savvy enough that they actually do that. So,
great.
Yeah. So,
excellent information. Thank you, Carrie.
Carrie, a question for Carrie. Is paralegal an offspring? Is a legal document preparation offspring of a paralegal?
A legal document preparer is just that, a legal document preparer. They may not necessarily be paralegals. They may not necessarily have the extra education, whether it's a 2-year degree or 4-year degree. They may just have special abilities to create legal documentation. It's kind of tricky though. If it doesn't, and it kind of doesn't make any sense. It's like becoming an accountant without actually going to school for it, or do bookkeeping without actually going and get educated for it. So I know a lot of, it may sound kind of weird, but I mean, if you're going to become a legal document preparer, get some sort of training in it. I would say go to, attend paralegal training. I won't get into how I hate those 6-week courses for paralegal training because I actually have an education in it. And, but if it's something that you're going to invest in, go for it. Just look for a legitimate, accredited, school or university that offers paralegal courses, not just some random storefront that offers this training and you know nothing about the person. But it varies. I would check your state laws as well as to what they say about legal document preparers, if you can become one, or even if you're a paralegal, if you can advertise as one. So it's very tricky. It's not something you just want to, I guess I'll just become a paralegal today. It's something to really look into and invest your time and really do your research.
Excellent suggestions. Yeah, and I know that sometimes just being a paralegal or having an associate's degree in paralegal studies is actually that what fulfills the requirement, I think, here in Arizona so you can get your certificate or your license to be a legal document preparer. So there's all kinds of things.
That's like the minimum. I have an associate's degree and still working on my bachelor's. Probably be 80 by the time I actually finish it, but yeah, it's at minimum. I would say, a 2-year degree is good. And if that's an actual career that people want to go to, part-time even, I would say go for it. It's very interesting, but you've got to have the know-how or the patience to, understand what you're doing and read the laws. And I'm kind of a bookworm anyway, a geek. So I naturally generated into that area, but do your research on it, definitely.
Love that, Carrie. Thank you so much for offering that. And kind of along the same lines, I want to jump to Beth's question here, because this is, for some reason, this question has come up so much. What do you do if a signer flips out because the warranty deed or the quitclaim deed in some cases says for consideration of $10? The first reaction is that they're not selling the property for $10, so why isn't the form accurate? Laura, have you experienced that? Do you see what that is?
Well, I've seen it on the form, but actually nobody's ever said anything to me, and I don't discuss their documents with them, so I don't really have anything to add to that.
Mm-hmm. Carol, what about you?
Yeah, I've seen that situation. Like, well, what's that $10? They're giving the property to their child, but there has to be some sort of a consideration on the deed in order to determine transfer tax, and it's just something that is required by the county clerk. And
yeah,
so that's what they stick in there. They can't put for nothing because that doesn't work. So.
Yeah, there's some older laws on the books in different states, I think, that specify that there has to be some amount of consideration. I've seen it even as $1, but sometimes $10.
Yeah, I've never seen less than 10, but I've seen 10 a lot.
If somebody were to flip out, though, and confront that situation and be confused by it and concerned by it, how would you address it?
The same way I just said, that because of the way that the county clerk records the documents and the law, they have to put some consideration on there. So that money may not even be transferred within the escrow. It could be something that the escrow company is paying for, or they charge it up to something else. It's not an actual figure that's $10 from him to her or whatever. It's just something that's required because that's what's required to determine transfer tax, and that will allow the clerks to record the document. That's it. That's all I would do. I would just tell them. I've never had anybody that refused to sign because of it or anything.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to unmute and ask a live question?
Okay, I have a question.
Great.
It came up from somebody who wrote to me last night, who's not a student of mine, and it was late, so I didn't even get the email until this morning. And Laura, apparently you were involved in this. And it's something I'd like to talk about because it's something that comes up all the time. You're in Minnesota, and you're signing a couple who has a property in California. And all of the documents have California certificates, notarial certificates on them, okay? My students call me all the time with this because they want to know, are they supposed to use those California certificates within the documents? And I always tell everyone, you can use the certificates that are for your state. You do not have to use, with as specific as California is and the way that the certificates are, you'd have to cross off so many things on it. I've had this situation one time, and it taught me a lesson. I had a fight with an escrow officer. I dismissed the California certificate. I used my Arizona certificate, and I attached them to the documents, and I sent them like I always have done when I'm a different state. And the escrow officer refused to accept it. And I'm like, yes, you can take my certificate. I am not commissioned in the state of California. Therefore, I am not obligated to your rules and regulations and all of the things that are on the California certificates, which is very specific. And I actually had to go through the escrow manager before she could talk to the officer and tell him, yes, you're going to accept those documents. They're perfectly fine. And this is something that we run into. I don't know anybody else here if they've had the same situation. California is so specific that it's the one that's really causing a lot of problems. I don't know what you told her last night, but apparently, did you talk to her? Did she call you? Because
I think it was
she talked to one of my.
Texting. Yeah.
So, what is your take on it?
Yeah, my take is very similar, Carol. You may use a California certificate when you're in another state, but there's no requirement for you to do so. Certainly, you can replace it with your own for acknowledgments. There's reciprocity amongst all 50 states. And the states say, I'll accept yours, you accept mine, as long as the wording does not ask you to make determinations that are not allowed by law for my notary. As long as you don't do that, I'll use it. If it does, then I cannot use it. And even in California, where our wording is so specific, I get this call on the hotline every day that I work the hotline multiple times. I have an out-of-state document going out of California, and can I use their certificate? And the answer is, if it's an acknowledgement, yes. It doesn't have to have the box. It doesn't have to have penalty of perjury. It can say in and for said state rather than your name. These are all details of that state. And as long as it didn't ask you to certify that somebody has representative capacity or a certain authority, then go ahead and use theirs. I always recommend you use their state language because it just makes it easier on the other end if it's possible to do so. The jurat, on the other hand, for us, we're stuck. We've got elements that are in ours that aren't on anybody else's, and we must use our own. So I think whenever it's possible to use another state's language, that's my option because I know it makes it easier on the other end. If I see there's something that causes me not to be able to use it, I replace it.
Beautiful.
Okay, we do the same thing.
Perfect. I love that Melissa asked this question because this comes up quite a bit as well. It's about debt settlements. She says, I so often see people say they refuse to do the signing or the presentation for debt settlements because of liability. In the trainings that I've attended regarding these, I've not, to my recollection, heard anything about liabilities involved for me or any. Do you have any input on these? Laura, Carol, do you have any experience in these debt settlement appointments that you'd like to share?
Yeah,
I do.
Go ahead,
They both
Want
do.
to talk first? Okay, I do because we did them. My husband and I used to do these debt settlements, and I actually have a little bit of training in my advanced course about what they are and how to do them. But there's a lot of shadow over these now. There's a lot of companies out there that are not reputable, and the fact that they are forcing people to say that they are representatives of that company, leading people to believe that they are part of that company, and because of some of the shady things that come about during these, in fact, I was thinking about just removing the training from my advanced course because I don't recommend them anymore. There is one company out there that I worked with for years, but for regular signings, and that's Sunshine Signing Connection. Probably somebody out there works with them. And that seems to be all that they're doing now. And the owners are very reputable, very good people. I worked with them for years. And they are apparently what they're doing is pretty legitimate. So the people that are working with them and doing the debt settlements, they're happy, they're getting paid what they want to, and they've had no problems. So I would just say be very, very careful about who you take them from and if you're going to take them at all.
Beautiful. Laura, what about you?
Yeah, I did them for quite some time. I don't care for them. So I just don't care for them. So I don't do them. And, for me, fortunately, I can choose what work I want to do. And the work that I want to do is lay in other areas. So I just don't do it. Yes, there's a script, and the script says you're a representative. Although I have to say, you know what? I've had signing companies, title companies to say, look, you're not just the notary. You represent us when you're at the table. So I don't see it really any different than that. But that's not why I don't do them. I just don't care for them. They tend to fall apart. They tend to say, wait, that's not what they said to me. And so the calls or the appointments get extended beyond what they should be, although there might only be 15, 20 pages of documents and only one notarization. It could still take you an hour or more. So it just wasn't worth it for me.
I think that's really good perspective. The thing is, these are uncomfortable signings, uncomfortable appointments. People are at rock bottom.
Right.
And signing appointments, we get a little bit of excitement. Maybe if somebody's buying a house, maybe they're refinancing or something. These appointments are like on the opposite spectrum. Crap has hit the fan for these people, and we may not agree with the policies, or we're like, gosh, why are they doing this? And we question that, and it makes it really uncomfortable for us. So they're not as fun, but still, I've talked to so many notaries who find the silver lining. I love that. They love these debt settlements because they like being of service, and they like showing compassion and empathy when people are at their rock bottom. So I think you can find the joy or the service in anything that you do. As far as liability goes, I was really curious about this. So of course I called some attorneys and got some perspective on it. And they, again, we're not legal advisors. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't advise on this, but they're exactly like Laura said. Everything that we do in our capacity when we're hired by somebody else, we're acting as a representative to them. We are representing the closing agent, the escrow company, when we sit at a closing table. So that role isn't too much different. They just spell it out a little more clearly sometimes in those debt settlements. So I don't think there's any additional liability that we really have to be concerned with. What it feels like to me when I read the forums, that people don't like doing these signings. They don't agree with them. They don't agree with the policies. So they find a reason not to want to do them. And then they share it with everybody else. That's what it feels like. So I still think I'm a big proponent of exactly what Laura said too. The beautiful thing about this business is that we get to choose what assignments we want to take. How do we want to mold our business? What niche do we want to tap into? We can do that, and we don't necessarily have to make something bad because we don't want to do it. We can just not do it. We can focus on what we want to do.
I think the most difficult thing about them is when you take one out to someone and you realize that they have misrepresented the information given to them, and now you're going through it and they're like, what? And they don't realize what's going to be repaid, what the cost is, and that's pretty heartbreaking. And that was actually the reason we stopped doing it, because it really hurt to see people being taken advantage of in a very sad way.
Yeah, if you're if you're anyway empathic and you pick up on emotions and feelings of people, they can be very draining, those types of appointments, for sure. And I'm sorry, Garrett, did you have a question?
May I chime in here?
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to chime in. I haven't been doing this very long, but I've done several debt settlements with Sunshine Signings. Oh. And they have always been very much on the up and up. Of course, they're lower paying, but I've never felt, I've done 2 or 3 of them, and I haven't felt uncomfortable yet. And I actually don't mind them because it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. It's just a scan back, and so I don't have any other experience other than Sunshine Signings. But so far, Sunshine Signings, nobody has been surprised. None of the clients have been surprised by the terms. They seem to have already been well prepped on the terms, and I've never had a client question what I presented to them through Sunshine. So I would echo the fact that Sunshine seems to be one of the more reputable ones to work for.
Awesome.
Well, Herb and Crystal are the owners, and they're terrific people, and they've been battling to keep their business going for a lot of years, but they're very good to work with.
Fantastic. Thank you for offering that perspective, Garrett. All right, guys, why don't we jump into the presentation where some of the questions are. Here, let's see. We've got some really good ones on here, and I'm glad that we kind of got warmed up here for our first one. From Tara. What is something that you know now that you wish you knew as a newbie? Laura, can you kick us off on that? Is there anything that jumps into mind?
I wish I knew me, or Bill, or Carol. I wish there were people like us when I started, because I had to make the mistakes. It took time, much more time. I would have made different decisions about the kind of work I took. It just would have been, if I had known that there were coaches out there, people willing to share, that would have made my learning curve much shorter.
Love that. Carol, how about you?
Well, I came from a different area, and that was as an escrow officer and an escrow manager. So I knew a lot about doing the signings. But when I created Notary to Pro, I tell everybody it was based on all the mistakes that I made over the years. It truly was. I mean, everybody should be happy that I made all those mistakes because that's how I created Notary to Pro. But I, like Laura, there was nobody out there. You didn't know what you were doing. It was a brand new, people didn't even know what mobile notaries were and notary signing agents. I wish I had known then how wonderful the pay that we got was back in those days and appreciated it more, because back then there wasn't any of us, and you got paid pretty well for doing the signings. But no, I think that the most important thing, and I hear it all the time, and I know you two do, I wish I had found you first. I wish I knew, because I've gone through, 3 years of struggling and making mistakes. So, but there was nobody. I know you're fairly new, Bill, but Laura, there was nobody.
Yeah. 16 years ago.
You were on your own.
I was on my own.
Great answers. I love that. For me, I think I would say that I wish I would have, in the very beginning, I wish I would have, number one, realized and truly owned this business for what it was, and treated it not like an ATM machine or like a side hustle, but really own this as a business. But as part of that, if I would have started out with the habits that I have today, and I learned like halfway through the process about how to stay top of mind in building authentic relationships, I'd probably be a multimillionaire right now, because I would have had so much more momentum going into this. Now, I was able to turn that around, and I've shared that story, how I boosted my revenue to like $20,000 a month just through doing repetitive, consistent action every single day to keep myself top of mind. That's what I think about a lot, not like regretfully, but I'm like, man, if I would have done that. So now when I start a new business, that's first and foremost. What am I going to do every single day to get me to where I want to go? So that would be the one thing that I would change.
I think I'll triple my fees for court. Because I'm never going to be a multimillionaire.
Okay, never say never.
Millionaire. Never
say never.
Not in my future.
I think that's a great question, Tara, and I love those thought-provoking questions, so I appreciate that. And I want to jump over to the chat window real quick, because the one that's driving me crazy is USA Signing Agents.
Yeah, me too.
Is that a legitimate business? Carol,
No.
What's your opinion? Please say it for everyone.
No, it's not. It's not. It's just one of those. And I have to tell you, I'm embarrassed to say this. Keep in mind that all of my siblings, all three of them, have master's degrees. I got a high school education. But it took me a while to learn that everybody who writes to you and sends you emails and says, for $19 a year, we're going to get you all the signings you want, because I put out the 19, the 5s, the 50s, all of that the first couple of years that I started. And I learned that there's 4 letters involved here, SCAM, because I never got work from anything I ever
was going to start with an F. Much more fun.
This is a scam.
Yeah, that's been my experience everywhere. Guys, I'm actively seeking any notary that has ever received business from USASigningAgent.com or some of the others that are like that, and I have yet to find. And I have a rather broad audience. We got about 15,000 between email and YouTube, and I have yet to find a single notary that has gotten a signing from them. So if that happens to be you, please email me at orders@notarycoach.com and tell me what it's all about. Laura, what about you? Any suggestions or input on?
Yeah, they're a directory that popped up like other ones. They take your money, and then what's supposed to happen is they are investing in advertising and getting their site to come up on the searches. And the thing is that yeah, they're just taking your money and nothing's going to happen. They're not going to be found. They may be legitimate in terms of they have a business model and they're doing the work, but they're just not getting anything done. I wouldn't waste my money on them.
Yeah, you need something with a proven history
Exactly.
of success. Now, with all this said, guys, I tell you all the time that this industry is ripe for innovation. I know there are new things in the works. There's stuff happening. I get contacted almost every day from people who are trying new things and doing cool stuff. And so I don't want to take away. There might be some legitimate directories out there that are springing up. So you just have to do your research, come on forums like this or the online forums and see if there's some feedback. You know, I don't want to take away and just say everything's a scam except for these 3 directories that we always talk about. There are some good companies, some good startups that are up on the work. So stay optimistic and be open, but do your due diligence so you don't waste your money, especially in the beginning.
Bill, I hate to bring this up. I don't know how many questions that we have that were pre-prepared, but we talked about this. I know that you wanted to do a big presentation on the split signings, but can we talk about this for a little bit? Because I'm getting just bombarded with certain questions on the split signings. Are you and Laura open to that?
I'm totally open. If we talk about split signings, that'll be it for the call. No more questions, or we can take questions. What do you think?
I think people have been waiting to hear about split signings. We've put it off quite a few weeks in a row. And certainly if you want to do something more elaborate than just discuss it, that's fine. But I think at least discussing it and putting it out there so people have their initial questions answered would be a good idea.
Let's do it. All right, Carol, take it away. Split signings. What's the deal?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have something prepared because I prepare things for my students, put them in the library. And so I have something that if anybody wants it, I'm more than happy. Just email me and I'll send it to you. But they're kind of confusing. Well, if you're the first notary that gets the documents, and a split signing is when people are in different, it doesn't have to be different states, it can be in different counties. You've got a husband working up in Northern California and the wife is in Southern California. The same set of documents are going to be signed by both. So you've got one notary that's going to be getting those documents first, and they're responsible for getting them signed and filling out the notarial certificates and doing everything. And then they ship those off to the next notary who does the same thing, gets the husband's signature and fills in the notarial certificates and everything. Okay. If you're the first signer, then they could be in different states, could be in counties, it doesn't matter. When you do the signing, you do it just as you would any other signing. But when you're filling out the certificate, the one thing that you have to remember, our basic job is identification and filling out these forms correctly. And you have to line out through the name of the person who is not appearing before you. This is very important. You've got John Smith and Jane Smith, and they're listed on the certificates. The first thing that you've got to do is cross through, put a line through the person who is not appearing before you, okay? You do everything, you send the documents off to the second notary. Now let's say that you are the second notary, and you get those documents, and the first thing that you see is that the first notary has not put a line through the name of the party that you're witnessing. You have to do something. You can't call that notary. You can't change it. You're not allowed to touch anybody else's certificates. Our notarial certificates belong to us. So I always tell my students, because they run into this all the time, call the title company, call whoever's contacted you, signing agent, lender, whatever, and you let them know that this prior notary has not done this correctly. They've either put the wrong date on it or they haven't crossed through the name. Let them deal with it. If you do this, you kind of become a hero in this situation, because you could very well be avoiding a 2 or 3 or 4 day delay in the funding and the recording of those documents. So it's not like you're trying to snitch on somebody, but this is very important if this happens. because it could cause a delay. Okay, so when you're the, do you guys have anything to add to that? Laura, do you have anything to add? That's just the beginning of it, but
Yeah,
I think it's
the
important.
other big issue I see is the right to cancel, and I'm assuming you'll go there next or soon.
Well, I wasn't going to go actually that far, but the right to cancel is a big deal because they'll have a date on there, but it's the last date that's going to be. We don't change the date. I don't change the date. I leave it as it is because that person is signing on that date. But my experience has been that the second notary has to adjust the dates on the notice of right to cancel, have it initialed by the borrowers and everything. And then that's the date that they go by, is the date that the second signer signed it. Let me see, hold on, let's see.
Carol, can you talk a little bit about what happens if the first notary did everything correctly? What should the second notary be looking for?
Well, the second notary is going to have to probably attach their own notarial certificate. You can't use the same certificates over again. So that's fine. If everything is in place, just make sure that you have your certificate from your state, and you always carry extras with you, or if you're doing it at home, and then have and then you're just going to list the name of the party that appears before you. Very simple. With the date, always the venue, which is the place where the county and the state where your feet are planted during the signing. I say that over and over again. I've had students call me and tell me they had nightmares listening to me say, the venue is the state and county where your feet are planted during the signing. So it has to be there. And the date has to be the date that you actually witness the signature. And the name on the notarial certificate is always just the person who appears before you.
And then there is a couple of questions that are speaking directly to what you just said, Carol. So Beth, yes, anytime you strike something out, you as the notary strike something out, you should initial it, just to let everybody know that you were the one that made that correction. And Arthur, regarding your comment here about split signing and lining out the party not present, just to clarify, you only line out the party not present in the notary block, the part that you have control of. You would never go through all the documents and strike through the person who's not there to sign. I've actually had that experience too, where a notary kind of misunderstood how it's supposed to work and struck through all the lines where the second party was going to sign, and that actually does jam things up. So just to clarify,
you don't want to scratch off the signature. Not the signature line, not anywhere. The only place that belongs to you is that certificate, and that's where it needs to be changed or lined out.
Carol, I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I've had split signings where I was the second notary. The first notary was being courteous that was the notary who actually printed the document package. So she or he printed 2 of the notarial certificate pages. And when I got the package, I'm looking at it going, oh, look, I don't have to attach my certificate. She's printed 2 pages here. I'll just scratch out her person's name in the certificate and use that. The problem that I ran into in that situation, deed of trusts are consecutively numbered documents. There were 2 page 17s in the package, and that totally freaked the lender out.
I have not had anybody be that courteous, and I don't suggest that my students do that. I think that if they're the first and they want to let the second notary use those certificates, that's very kind of them, and that's fine for them to do, but you have to attach a separate one and do the page thing. At the end of it, if it's a 17-page document, you have to say this is page 18. So you're right there. You can't do that because it does upset them. It changes things.
Definitely. And I will say that one of the reasons I love working for OCD escrow officers is that a lot of times they will actually prepare these and include the additional certificates because they want control. I love a control freak escrow officer. Sometimes their standards are super high and hard to reach, but they are on it with this kind of stuff. So they can actually include all those in there for you. Was that you, Carol? The OC.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Diana asked a great question about the right to cancel as well. If a right to cancel is split out, so let's say the husband has his own right to cancels and the wife has her own right to cancels, do you do anything with the second party who's not in front of you's right to cancel?
No.
Just leave
No,
them?
I let them, the next notary, because it could be that they're dating it the next day or even 2 days later. You don't know. I leave that alone. The only thing that I know is to cross off the name that's not appearing before you. But the dates, they'll date it whatever date they sign, and all of the the dates that belong at the top, the rescission date and everything, will be done by the second notary. And you leave that alone. Let them take care of it. There was a couple of other things that I've run across, and I don't remember.
While you're looking for that, I'm going to talk about, because on the right to cancel, if you have just the gentleman signing, and then it's sent to the wife on the signs on a different day, they have to go back and edit the husband's document, the right to cancel. So how does that work?
Well, I don't edit. I would not edit it as the notary. I let the lender deal with it. They go for, I don't know if I'm understanding. If the husband signed on July the 5th, the rescission date is going to be whatever, the 9th or whatever. And you're the one that's taking care of that. I don't leave anything. I leave it all alone. I leave it exactly as it's supposed to be, as if it were funding and, everything was closing out. On the second one, the other notary will fill in the dates. They'll have the rescission date based on the person and the date that they are witnessing. And then the funding is usually based on the date that the second person signs. Is that what you're asking? Or?
Well, that's partially it, but the husband and wife have signed on different dates. So the husband's no longer in the room. He signed the document on one date. It's been sent. The wife signs the next day in a different county. So now the rescission date on the husband's is incorrect, or the transaction date is incorrect. It doesn't match. So how do you fix?
I don't.
The husband's. You just let the lender deal with it?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Clear as mud, guys? The split signing.
And like I said,
Yeah,
if anybody is interested, I'm sorry. Oh, one other thing too, because I've had this happen. Let's say that you have a husband coming in the morning and the wife coming in the afternoon. You're good. Leave the names alone. You're seeing both of them. You don't have to change anything at all, and just leave it. But anyway, if anybody's interested, notarytopro at gmail.com. I'll be happy to send you a copy of this. It's just really basic, but it's what comes up all the time.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. Any questions about split signings while we have just a couple more minutes?
I have one more comment to add. And that is, I've dealt with a couple of lenders who do not want any strikes or marks or edits. And so for those, when I've had to do that, I leave the certificate alone. I just add my own, and I don't worry about striking out who wasn't there. And I just add my own certificate. That way I don't have to strike anything out. I can't think of the one that they don't want anything, any strikes with initials, nothing, just get a clean sheet. Same thing, if I made a mistake with the ink, with the stamp, don't strike it, do another certificate.
Starts with a P. What's the name of that horrible company?
It does start with a P, and I can't think of their name.
Provident. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can't do anything.
Do not do that when you're new. Make sure you're experienced and you know the different situations that come up and how you might handle them, because they are very, very specific in what they want.
We were at a lender's office once, had the documents printed by the lender. We're sitting at the table. We find that the middle initial of the man is incorrect. So I asked the loan officer, well, should I go ahead and strike through? And he says, yeah, go ahead. It was a Provident loan. Guess who had to go back and re-sign the next day?
Yeah.
Their mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty hardcore for sure.
Yeah.
And just to wrap up on the split signings, guys, these are worthy of your attention. So whatever you got to do to bring yourself into a present moment, this is the time to do it, because you've got to, sometimes you have to do the 4506. You got to look at the loan application. You might have to look at things a little bit differently, knowing that there's not somebody there. So do your breathing, bring yourself into the moment, let them know that you're going to really spend some time looking at the documents and double check those before you send on, because if you make a mistake, not only do you have the usual problems, but you have a little bit of embarrassment too, and you really jam things up for the next notary sometimes as well.
Before we go, can I bring up one other thing that just happened to cross my mind, and that's the way I work.
Uh-oh.
Because I won't remember it a week from now.
Yeah.
Anybody who's out there that deals with any properties that are, other states, one of the things you've got to be so careful of is the tax documents. Because a lot of the times they ask questions of the sellers that are so, they're directed to how much they paid, what interest they owe, and all of these questions. And if you have a seller that doesn't understand or know exactly how to answer these questions, these all come down to what kind of capital gains taxes the IRS is going to throw at them at some point in time. And what my experience has been, and what's worked for me over the years, is to have them call their tax accountant or whoever handles their taxes while you're at the table, if they can answer those questions for them. And if they can't answer those questions, I tell them to take these tax forms home, get somebody to help them immediately that knows what they're doing to answer these questions. I put a note to escrow or title that documents, all the documents are here with the exception of the tax form, and that the seller is responsible for getting that back right away, and they know that. Because if you let them just guess at the answers, you could be putting these people in terrible jeopardy. And try getting those capital gains figures back from the IRS and changing them. Almost impossible. Just something to throw out there, because I think it's really important that we help the sellers out with that information.
Laura, what do you think? Something to add on that?
Well, something similar. Yeah. If what I do, since I have two, right, my package and their copy, I have them sign the one so I can send it back with a note that says the information will be faxed over to them. Remember, this is not a notarized document. I don't have to worry about completeness. If they don't know what they're doing and it's a 8:00 at night appointment, they're not going to get their CPA, then I pull out that copy and say, okay, you work on getting that and you fax it. And then I put a note on the signed copy that's not filled out that says information coming via fax, so that they know, hey, I addressed the document. The signer was unable to prepare the document at this time, but I've made arrangements for that to happen.
What an awesome solution. I love that.
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
good.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
That takes us about 3 minutes past the hour, so I want to respect Carol's time, Laura's time, and definitely all of your time. Thank you so much for growing yourself and your business on a Tuesday morning. Carol, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Laura, even though you're down and out, feeling good, you're here with us. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye.